Okay, so let's do a little editing here. First thing we're going to do is make this a lowercase c because it's kind of outside our convention. So as we change the name of the label, we have to change the name of the label everywhere in the script. There's only 3 places. So again, I am pedantic in this way somewhat by my own nature, but also because I do when you're, if you say you're dealing, just is just kind of, again, sort of a soapbox issue, but if I inherit a code base or something like that from someone, and there's just all kinds of inconsistency when it comes to variable names and things like that, it's just it's one more thing that I have to worry about. So I am by nature, I am just very, very, very concerned about my own code, so that if for whatever reason anyone ever has to deal with my code, that I want to remove as much crap as much crap as I can, so that they can just get down to business and do whatever they need to do to my code, or what used to be my code, and not have to worry about some crappy inconsistency naming conventions and Hungarian notation or whatever, and you know and that sort of stuff. So moving on, we have AOBScan. We are scanning for this array of bytes, and we are naming it AOB increase karma. So how do we make our script more dynamic? It's pretty simple. What we are getting back from the AOBScan, assuming that it works, is we are getting back a memory location. So what can we do with that? Well, we're going to go down here and we're going to get rid of this, because this is we had hard coded this address, and now this address, when we restart the application, just like a regular value, it is no longer valid. So we're going to get rid of that. And what are we going to do? Well, we're just going to say AOB increase karma. So how can we do that? What is AOB increase karma? It's a memory location. It's a pointer. You know, it's you could say it's both, because there's really no difference. So what is AOB increase karma? It's some memory location. It might be 13E2 F139. It might be 13E2 F130. It is, again, this is why I beat on the concept of variables. What is a variable? It's a way of giving some name, some label. If you want to sort of bring it back to assembly here, it's a way of giving some label to some value that you don't really have to care about what the value is. And that sort of conceptual construct, if you will, gives you incredible power when it comes to doing dynamic things, such as doing code injection at a location that we don't really ever have to know what that location is. I don't know what AOB increase karma is going to be every time we restart the application. I don't care. That is the beauty of variables in general. And if you recall, in a previous video, we brought up something, looked up a pointer, and there's a quote by Donald Knuth, and basically he was saying assignment statements and pointers are one of the most valued treasures of computer science. This is exactly why, because on a structured construct, whatever you want to say, this gives you immense and just an enormous amount of power when you use it to create dynamic scripts, programs, applications, whatever you want to say. You don't have to care about what the value is. There will be situations where you will, I mean, in our situation here, we don't care what the value is, but in the event that you're doing, some algorithmic calculation or something like that, then, obviously you're going to care, maybe you might care what the values are, but this is basically the essence of why being able to refer to values with a name without actually having to know what the value is powerful. And I don't know how to put it in any other way. So, can we just go down here and do AOB increase karma? Probably. Well, yeah, we will say probably, but we are not going to do that. Well, why not? What we are going to do is we are going to make a new comment header up here. We are going to do injection points. Do we want to do it? Let me just think, sort of on a logical level. Yeah, because just as far as flow goes. All right, so we're going to make a new label. What are we going to do? What label are we going to make? We are going to create labels for the varying injection points that we will add as we develop this script. So we are going to do label inject, increase, karma, and that's it. And so what are we going to do with this label? What we are going to do is we are going to make inject, increase, karma essentially the same value as AOB increase karma. Why are we doing that? Is it necessary? Probably not. But I personally, stylistically, I like to do it because it allows me to sort of have a clear separation of concerns, if you will. That this, whenever I need to mess with an injection point, I can just do it. And whenever I need to mess with an AOB result set or result, because it's not a set, but an AOB result, I have some other label that clearly differentiates that. There will probably never ever be any divergence between the inject increase karma and the AOB increase karma values. But again, just from a logical standpoint, I do it. Is it necessary? Possibly not. But we are going to do it anyway. So how are we going to assign basically this to that? It's pretty easy. After the label here, we are just going to do inject, if I can type right, increase karma. And we're going to do that. So basically what's happening here is AOB increase karma is the result of the AOBScan. And then there's some other label that we declared, inject increase karma. And it is sort of going to assume the value of the AOBScan. And there's a lot of subtlety here, but basically what we are going to say, and this is something that we'll, I'm sure we'll get into all kinds of crazy details and whatnot once we get the script to a point that we actually start messing around with the values. But for our purposes here, we're just going to say that inject increase karma, when you have a label that follows a label, it is going to sort of assume the value of the previous label. There's other ways that you could do it using assembly instructions, but again, I'm being purposefully vague and generic about this because I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it. I want to sort of keep going forward and building out the script and putting some logic in and messing around with the values and whatnot. So inject increase karma is going to pretty much be the address that is returned by the AOBScan. So what do we do down here for the disable section? We need a way to refer to where the injection point is up here so that we know where to go and what code or what to replace the jump and the NOP with. We need that memory location. We already have it. That's why we made the inject increase karma. So inject increase karma, done. Now when we run the script, it's going to do the AOBScan. It's going to put the memory location, whatever the first hit, if you will, but basically it's going to be this address over here, into AOB increase karma. When it comes down here and it starts dealing with the injection points, Cheat Engine is going to say, all right, you want to inject code. Where do you want to inject it? You want to inject it at this address. And then it's also basically going to say, inject increase karma equals the same thing. So it's the same address over here in both these values. But again, separation of concerns and whatnot. What do you want to inject? I want to inject a jump to entry increase karma, and then I want to do a pad and NOP because we have to maintain sort of sanity in the application and the OS and whatnot. So it's going to go up here, and then there's no logic. It's going to jump to process increase karma. It's going to execute that statement. Then it's going to jump to return karma, which is the instruction that immediately follows. And then when we disable the script, it's going to say inject increase karma, which is this same location right here, and then it's going to move this instruction, or it's going to replace whatever we are injecting with this instruction right here. Then it's going to deallocate chunk 0. Can we click OK? Are we done? No. There's one more thing that we have to do. What we have to do is we have to worry about scope. It's sort of a technical programming jargon for this. From the standpoint of Cheat Engine, what is executed in the enable section and what is executed in the disable section is totally different. You cannot refer to something that you define in general terms. You cannot refer to something that you define in the enable section in the disable section and expect that to work. A notable exception is the chunk 0 here. that's more of a byproduct of how Alec does its business. When you Alec something, it just sort of becomes, you can refer to the name globally, is basically the way to do it. And when it comes to scope and things like that, there's two basic terms that you should be familiar with: local and global. Global basically, as in a general way, in a nutshell, means that you can access whatever is global. You can access it anywhere. It doesn't matter where the hell you are. You could be in enable, you could be in disable shit, you could be out here in the address list, which we will see as we start to build the script out more. That we will basically just add addresses manually when we have the script enabled, and we're who gives a crap what the address is. We will change address right here just to some name. And Cheat Engine will say, well, some name, you registered that as a global, I know exactly what that is. There's some address associated with it, so I'll just go find that address, and then bam, we can do your business. And so Alec, that's sort of a byproduct of Alec. But in our case, we are referring to inject increase karma, which is declared and defined in the enable section. So we need some way to basically make it a global, if you will. And the way that you do that, we will call it scope, is you register symbol. And it's just like, it's the same sort of syntax as a label. You just register symbol. What's the name of the symbol that you want to register, that you want to make global, if you will? Inject increase karma. So what does that do for us? It now means that we can essentially refer to inject increase karma wherever the hell we want, anywhere in the script or outside the script. And maybe we will demonstrate that if we have the time. So now we can actually refer to this, because when you go to disable the script, the enable script will already have been assembled and executed. So this symbol, inject increase karma, not only is it declared and not only is it made global, but it has a value. So now when the disable section runs, it encounters this and says inject increase karma. That's a name. I need to go sort of look in my symbol list or whatever, and I need to go find the value of this label. Well, it's global, so I can find it, because again, we just talked about it. So I know exactly where that is in memory, or I know exactly what that value is. And the last thing we have to do is, you have to, when you make something global, or in the parlance of Cheat Engine, when you register a symbol, you have to, or you don't have to, but again, good housekeeping, you have to unregister it as well. If you don't unregister it, then after your script is disabled and it's no longer in memory and everything is back to the way it should be, then it'll still be floating around out here, or in the sort of the in memory of Cheat Engine. It'll still, Cheat Engine will say, yep, I still know what inject increase karma is. And you could sort of introduce some subtle bugs by accidentally referring to that value, or by accidentally referring to this label when the script is disabled, and this label doesn't actually have any memory location associated with it. It's just blanked out, or some random series of bits, and you're referring to it as if it actually has some valid value. And you'll wind up, again, you'll be way out there. You're going to crash your game, your program. It's going to be subtle, and it will probably be subtle and somewhat difficult to find. So let's sort of go over this one more time. We have our AOBScan. We're registering the symbol. We have our injection point. We are registering that injection point as a symbol. We have our jumps. We have our AOB here. We have our injection point, which these two labels refer to the same memory location. We were return, which is the next instruction. We disable. We have inject increase karma, the original code, and then we are being good housekeepers. Let's click OK. Cheat Engine does, again, as we showed in the previous video, when you click OK, there's a basic sanity test that is done on your script to make sure there's no basic errors. And we are going to do we want to enable it? No, we're going to stop, and then we will actually start enabling the script and messing around with it in the next video.